Well, hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Comstock channel. I'm Marlin Bohling with you, and I'm going to welcome aboard Eric Relph of Comstock Investments. We're going to chat a little bit about a crazy finish to the day on Monday as we came back from a three-day holiday weekend. All eyes were on the grain markets to see what they would do. Would they follow through from last Friday? Would they counter? Would they take the opposite sides? Would funds move in and out? And then it turned out that that was kind of one of the smaller stories on the course of the day on Monday. We'll talk about that in just a second. Be sure to like this video. Also, make sure you subscribe. Hit that bell icon, and we'll let you know when the next update comes out. Very important. Also helps with our algorithm, too, on YouTube. And be sure and share it with others, especially today, because this is an important episode. Eric, right before the close, I'm going to say around 12:30 Central Time today, the cattle market completely walked off a cliff.
Yes.
And everybody was scratching their head late in the session. What is going on? And it was just a dynamic sell-off. If you can, recap what happened there in that last 30 minutes of trade today.
So I thought it was odd at around noon. I happened to catch on some of my short-term charts that there was a gap lower in some key contracts, including the June fat cattle and the May feeder cattle, which are the highest volume months right now. And that caught me off guard a minute. And then we just kind of went sideways. And so I didn't give it too much thought. And then about 20 minutes after that happened, so around 12:20, 12:25, just fell apart. And of course, when something like that happens, you've got two choices, basically. You either cut and run or start figuring out what's going on to find out if it's something you want to stand behind or not. So I was doing both in some cases, and it was just kind of a chaotic last half hour to the cattle market trade, 40 minutes anyway. But what we found out is that we have the first confirmed human case of this strain of avian flu that's been infecting dairy cattle across the country. We reported last week that it started out in Kansas and Texas. That's since changed to Texas, Idaho, Michigan, Kansas, Ohio, New Mexico, and a lot of concern that maybe it is being transmitted amongst the cattle. And that's how it's spreading so quickly, and they're finding new cases of it. And now, of course, it's jumping another species.
Makes you wonder if we can even keep calling it avian flu, you know?
Right. We talked about cattle wild wings. Now we're going to talk about human wild wings, apparently.
Yeah, so this is very weird. Second case, I understand, in the U.S. Is that right?
Yeah, the last one was a couple years ago in Colorado. And this is the second confirmed case. Symptoms not too heavy. Conjunctivitis in the eye was the main thing. But they're looking for a series of symptoms, of course, like anything else. But primarily, what we've seen in the cattle is loss of appetite, lack of weight gain, lack of milk production. So you can kind of translate that to humans. You're going to have fever, loss of appetite, nausea, so stomach problems like you would expect with any other flu. And that's what we saw out of this case.
Now, this may be the second case in the U.S. However, this is the first case of direct exposure to dairy cattle that were infected with it, correct?
Yeah, this is the first time we've seen species jumping like this and at this rate. And so that's what I think that's the most alarming thing, especially to the medical professionals, especially at the federal level. They're trying to get a lid on this thing, and it seems like they're trying to put a genie back in a bottle here. And this is kind of turned into a serious situation, and I'm not really sure how the industry is going to take it, how the market's going to take it, and how big of a deal could this become. You know, we've come off of one pandemic. We certainly don't need another. But this is something that some specialists have been looking for decades, that there would be a transition to human-conceived avian flu that would be a major illness that we would have to contend with. And I hope they're wrong, but we're definitely on the cusp of that potential.
You know, Eric, I think you and I were talking maybe a couple of months ago, and I think you made the comment way back then that sooner or later there could well be a black swan event come in because the cattle market has been flying so high for so long.
Right.
And everybody thought, well, you know, there's no way to pick a top on this thing because it just seems like it can go forever. And now here this story comes along, and it's interesting how it could turn everything on its head. Everybody from the federal government agencies, they all say, no need to worry, because the milk is pasteurized. It'll take care of it and everything. But I think the public is very squeamish, aren't they, because of the deal with COVID and everybody, was giving us orders on what to do and what not to do and what
Sure.
not to worry about and what to worry about. And that didn't turn out so well. I think the public is probably really nervous about this story.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of skepticism, even if the government tells us it's okay. I mean, they told us it was going to take 18 days to get rid of COVID. I don't think they're going to have a lot of clout when it comes to believing their take on the situation, regardless of what that is.
So we had a huge sell off in the cattle market here. Was that justified, or is this just where people's emotions are just going to take over and they're just going to run rampant for a while?
I'm afraid it might be the latter in this scenario. This is a market that's been the cattle market generally um, goes towards seeks out negative news and periodically has to have some kind of a market wrecking black swan event. It just is cyclical within the cattle market. Sometimes it's the stock market falls apart. Sometimes it's a packing plant burns up. The mad cow in Canada. Whatever it is, you have these cycles. And although it seems like just yesterday, it was 2019 when the Holcomb plant burned, and that was our last real black swan, barring COVID the very next year. But isolated incident, that was the last one. That was just directly related to cattle. This may be the one. I hope not. I hope that isn't how this plays out. But the Packers have been needing some excuse, and this will give it to them if we can continue to stoke fears. This is getting a heck of a lot more circulation than the dairy outbreaks last week did. And that situation last Tuesday, it crashed the market, but it was just for a day. We did make some recovery by the end of the week, but even that, we were seeing cattle move for $4 or $5 less than the week before for a couple days in there, and this could be a bigger deal.
So could this be enough, do you think, to make the big funds that have been long on the cattle market to make them hit that flush lever?
I think we saw the beginning of that today. Blind selling basically is the way I would describe it. What happened initially today. When you have the cattle market sitting there near unchanged on the day, the feeders were up or down depending on the contract, but near steady. Fat cattle were down just a little bit, and then all of a sudden you're down $4 in the feeders, $2.50, $3 in the fats. You finish the day $6, $7 lower in some of these contracts of feeder cattle, 4 or 5, even closer to $6 lower. They did touch limit lower in both fed and feeder cattle, 825 in the feeders and 650 in the fats. So yeah, this is not a time that the daily limits right now are not a time to be toying with this situation. And you have a limit day down tomorrow. Who knows?
Okay, so now in grains, you can trade overnight.
Grains,
Cattle market, you can't do that. I mean, there won't
yeah,
be any trade until tomorrow morning, right?
that's
How in the
right.
world do you protect yourself anyway?
Livestock Risk Protection, or LRP, is a federally subsidized risk management program that ensures against a decline in livestock market prices. I'm Eric Relph of Comstock Investments, and we've been helping livestock producers understand and utilize this valuable program since it was launched. The program is available for all 3 major classes of livestock, including swine, feeder cattle, as well as live cattle. Contact us so that we can help you maximize your profits for your specific livestock operation. Well, for our producers that have policies in place, we can do LRP after hours. It is the only way to position yourself short after the market has closed and before it has opened the next day. In fact, those are the only times we can do LRP, or between 4:30 p.m. when the quotes come out from the RMA and before 8:20 the next morning, which gives them a 10-minute buffer before the market reopens. LRP has to be done in that window. So all that work is done in the evening or early in the morning. And that's going to be the only way to be short before this thing reopens tomorrow at 8:30 in the morning.
Oh, so explain what that is, LRP, in case some of our
Oh,
viewers don't know what that is.
it's a government subsidized program that protects against downside market turns. That is the only thing it protects against. It doesn't protect against death loss or vet bills or anything else. It's just a protection against the market moves lower. In this case, who knows? The last time we saw a real cattle directed black swan event, we were limit down for a few days. That includes the expanded limits, which from these levels are astronomically high. And you're talking about the difference between making a couple $100 a head and losing a couple $100 a head if something like that were to happen. So This is it's a good program that is subsidized, that is available for any 4 week interval, not just the months that the cattle are traded. That's another big deal that people can misconstrue a little bit. Available from 13 to 47 weeks almost all the time in 4 to 5 week increments. Sometimes available up to 52 weeks out, obviously a full year. The other thing about the LRP is the premiums aren't due until within 30 days of the end date of the policy. Well, by then the cattle are sold.
That's interesting. It's kind of like a put option, except it's government subsidized, right?
Yeah, very much like a put option, a little cheaper because of the subsidy. And you don't have to pay the premium up front. You can defer that to once you've cashed your check for your cattle sold.
Well, then let me throw out a theoretical here. Okay, you said you can't write them until after 4:30 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Today on a Monday. That's Central Time, I assume.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. Yep.
If that's the case, I mean, can someone still call and get a contract in effect before tomorrow? Or do
If
you
they
have to have already been an LRP account holder before this?
You have to have a policy in place before we can endorse any specific set of cattle. So the policies have to be set up, which, as I'm talking here, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I could probably still get policies done today. But once we hit that 3:30, 4 o'clock time frame, then I can't do it anymore. But
Really? Wow.
my LRP policy holders will be able to review quotes this evening and put endorsements on for any uncovered cattle if they choose to do so tonight or early in the morning.
Wow. Well, this would be an example that really drives home the value of that. I guess I wasn't aware myself of, how much potential there was to take advantage of a situation like this. All right. Well, maybe if somebody has questions, they can give you a buzz in a hurry yet today, maybe get something done. On the other hand, we had the grain markets.
Sure.
I couldn't tell that they got anything done today. Could you?
Yeah, well, other than lower, we were less than convinced on Thursday after the report that the market was ready to rock and roll here, and we kind of saw the proof in the pudding today and traded lower across the board on everything really. We did flash some green on the screen, particularly in the soybeans early. Went and took out Thursday's high, but then finished down for the day, and so this was kind of just kind of drove home the point that we really don't know what's going on with the grains, and that may have been the smallest crop size we see printed all year, particularly for the corn.
Doesn't that worry you with this news about the cattle industry that perhaps maybe that'll mean less corn demand down the road?
Well, that's been worrying me for quite a while. The feed and residual line on the balance sheet hasn't been changing, and all we've heard about is, and we've seen the proof of, I shouldn't say we just heard about it, the herd shrinking. Yet we're not seeing any real changes, nothing meaningful anyway. You've seen the reports of all the birds that died from avian flu. The cattle, we've just been killing off the cows like crazy and shrinking this herd size down. And we continue to leave the feed and residual use at near unchanged. And I think part of that is a byproduct of lack of pasture ground, which maybe this break in the drought in the Western Plains can cycle that out of here. But all in all, yeah, there's definitely concern there.
All right. Well, I know you've been very, very busy today, and I think we better hurry and get this message out today because it is
Yeah,
really timely. Things
I agree.
happened in a flash right at the end of the day, and there's a lot of risk in this cattle market right now. So I'm sure maybe you'll be getting some phone calls here before you leave the office today. I think a lot of people are going to have a big interest in that.
Sure.
If they do want to call you, why don't you go ahead and throw out your phone number here, and then maybe they can get in touch with you yet today.
Yeah, so you can call the office at 712-227-1110 or shoot me an email at ericr@comstock.com. That's ERICR at comstock.com. If the office phones are off, because they do turn off late afternoon, you can send an email. I can still get that, and I can still be working on things later in the day.
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad you had a chance to talk with us and explain what took place today. I guess time is of the essence, as the old saying goes, and
Sure.
hopefully everybody can kind of make lemonade out of this kind of a bad situation before the end of the day. Thanks for the help here, Eric. I'll let you go for now, and we'll talk with you. Maybe we can go ahead and do that series about LRP and get
Yeah,
everybody educated about this in
I
the
think
near
it's
future
get
here.
rolling. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, the timing might be right. Thank you, Eric. Eric Relph with us. He's with Comstock Investments. That'll do it for this kind of an emergency episode here. Thanks for our producer, Brianne Hendrickson. Also, I want to thank you for joining us. Make sure you share this video and pass it along. Well, until next time, I'm Marlin Bohling. Catch you then on the Comstock channel. Thanks for joining us on our Comstock YouTube channel. Don't forget you can also find us on Facebook and TikTok as well.